when I was 10 years old, I saw Back to the Future for the very first time. I remember being filled with wonder and excitement as I imagined all the cool things that Marty McFly was going to do with his time machine. Imagine all of the people throughout history that he was going to see. All of the events that he was going to witness. And then I watched the movie. And I realized that when Marty was given the opportunity to see or do anything, he didn't. Instead, he went to the past, in 1955, where his parents were both still in high school. And he almost hooked up with his mom. Somehow this movie remains a classic. And there's a reason why. The film follows Marty as he finds himself stuck in the past, faced with the challenge of bringing himself back to reality. It's pretty outrageous, to say the least, but it holds a complicated truth that we are often scared to face on a daily basis. How many times do we find ourselves living in our own pasts, thinking, I just miss the good old days, recreating our nostalgia? Psychologist Bernard Golden explains, such preoccupation with the past undermines our ability to fully engage with the present and even our potential futures. And that is my concern. I fear that far too often we find ourselves stuck in the past. We have transcended our ability to distinguish what once was from what will be. And in the process, we've rebranded regret and redundancy as remembrance. So today, travel with me as we first analyze how we find ourselves stuck in the past. Next, we'll look at the present harms of doing so, before finally coming up with some not so outrageous future solutions. When Marty McFly arrived in 1955, he was met with the beautiful past of the United States of America. That's right, everyone was smiling, the economy was booming, and of course the music was rocking. But when you're watching the movie, you almost forget that 1955 was not a good year for our country. That was the year that Rosa Parks was arrested. The year that we started the Vietnam War. And worst of all, the year McDonald's was founded. You see, the greatest thing about the benefit of hindsight is just that. As human beings, we have the ability to look back on our past and understand both the good and the bad. But most of the time, that's not what happens. Hal McDonald, a researcher at Mars Hill University, explains that most humans practice something called restorative nostalgia, where we look back on our past with the sole desire of recreating it in the present. This is the same desire that causes students like me to get homesick when we go off to college. It makes our parents say, well, back in my day, every time that they see a cell phone. And generally just makes us miss those special moments that define our lives. On the surface, this isn't bad. Everyone does it. But it leads to a much larger problem. The National Religious Research Institute explains that today, 51% of Americans believe that our culture and way of life in our country has only gotten worse since the 1950s. The 1950s, a time where segregation, sexism, and homophobia were the norm. For evidence, even look towards our president today, whose entire political campaign was based solely on nostalgia, to bring America back to when it was great in the past. A powerful way to cloak a racist and sexist history as one of patriotism and prosperity. When we have nostalgia for the good old days, we only remember what was good. In the process, we ignore everything that comes with it. We ignore things that define who we are. Firstly, as individuals, this rejection of the present is hurting us at the most basic level. On the surface, nostalgia is a stabilizing force. It provides us a sense of personal continuity of who we truly are. But that's not the whole story. A recent study in the United Kingdom specifically linked individuals who are more focused on their past to uniquely poor mental health, even tracing symptoms to anxiety and depression. Imagine that. Something as complex as mental health can be explained by something so simple. But secondly, as a society, when we bring the past with us into the present, we reject years of progress in the making. Look at issues like sexism. For generations, we have preached to fight for equality. Hell, we're on our third wave of feminism. We've done it twice before. You think that we would be making progress, but today, 4 in 10 women will face discrimination based on their gender within their lifetime. Look at more recent issues in United States history. Homophobia. Very recently, our country has become so open to the LGBT community, and that's good. It's not perfect, but it's progress. But when parents bring the way that they were raised to the present, the norms of the past, the way that it should be done, NCBI estimates that 43% of LGBT children will find themselves homeless 1 year after coming out to their parents. We're not just having nostalgia anymore. We're regressing into a history of persecution and inequality. I'm gonna be honest, I really wasn't the biggest fan of Back to the Future growing up. When I was a kid, I only watched true cinematic masterpieces, like Meet the Robinsons. Even in that crazy sci-fi time travel flick, the main character is stuck in his own past and refuses to accept reality for what it truly is. But as the movie ends and the credits roll, a quote fills the screen. Keep moving forward. We need to understand that the problem that we are facing today has a solution, and it doesn't require some disgraced nuclear physicist to solve. We just need to take a step forward. By first, traveling back to the past and understanding the difference between living in it and learning from it. We can practice reflective nostalgia, where we look back on our past and understand that yesterday is history. Tomorrow is the real mystery. Second, come back to the present and challenge the status quo. Issues like sexism, racism, and homophobia have been around for generations, and they will be around tomorrow. Unless we take 2 steps forward but never 1 back. Let go of the good old days and ensure that inequality doesn't follow us to the future. And finally, travel with me back to the future. And imagine all of the great things in store for each and every single one of us. All of the people that we'll meet. And all of the events that we're going to witness. That's time travel. And that's you moving forward.